Hey everybody, Vince Dowd, the founder of hijackmind.com and Serene Investor. So tonight I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. Just finished some seminars and obviously saw the Bitcoin on the rise today, hitting multiple levels up to $19,000 before coming back down. Now I wanted to share with you because as I tune in to different broadcasts, whether it be on social media, YouTube, CNN, CNBC, Bitcoin has become a big topic. And the big topic is bubble. So the question is Bitcoin a bubble? So I want to get into this with you tonight and just share from my perspective as a trader, as somebody who's been through multiple bubbles, just kind of what my take is on it. Hopefully this helps you, especially if you're brand new. If you have not been an investor, have not been in the markets, whether it be the real estate market, the stock market, the tulip market in the 1600s. If you have not been through these bubbles, then I want to share with you just some insights, and I hope this will really help you. I have been killed in bubbles, but I've also made a lot of money in bubbles. So let me just, first of all, say this. I don't know if it's a bubble, and I don't think anybody knows. The only time you know a bubble's a bubble is after it pops and you look back at it. Sometimes in the bubble, we never know. But let's just assume that everything's a bubble. So let's look at what a bubble means based on Investopedia and their definition. So a bubble is obviously an economic cycle. It's characterized by rapid acceleration of an asset price, followed by a steep contraction, and it's created a surge in asset prices that are unwarranted based on the fundamentals of the asset, and it's driven by exuberant market behavior. Greenspan back in the dot-com days called the market's irrational exuberance. And after that, shortly, we started to see the collapse in the markets. Now, I lived through that. I started trading the financial markets in 1995, option trading, stock trading. I took a couple $1,000s to quite a bit of money and made a lot of money, but then I lost a ton of money because of the crash. And I was so new. I was a young guy. I didn't know what I was going to experience. But now I'm an older gentleman and I've been through many pains and many great times. So I want to share with you kind of what my thoughts are. So again, you can look at the definition of a bubble. And we can go back to the stock market, the business sectors, and so forth. But and it talks about the real change that occurred in the bubble economy of Japan. Now I remember I was in the Air Force, and Japan was really buying up all our real estate in the U.S. Everybody was so afraid of Japan taking us over, and then the air was let out, and Japan got killed. They've really never recovered from that massive bubble that Japan had. I was just in Japan about a month ago, and you know they have a healthy economy, but still they've had challenges from that bubble. Then the dot-com bubble hit. In fact, it was so crazy that companies that were not even on the internet, by simply changing their name to a dot-com company, their price would accelerate in the stock market. It was crazy. The actual number of people that were investing or trading that absolutely had no idea what they were doing. Fortunately, I was being trained and learning and spending a ton of time in study of technical and fundamental analysis, but I still got hurt in the bubble as well. And then we had the real estate rise that collapsed here in 2007, 2008, because people just took their money and put it into the real estate market. So we can go back to the first bubble, which was, again, the early times, and we can go back to the beginning of the tulip craze, which happened in Holland from 1634 to 1637. Now notice it was a 3-year bubble. That was 3 years tulip prices went up. So, you know, if you look at the bubble, well, this could be the first year of the bubble for Bitcoin, if it is indeed a bubble. Bubbles, we don't know how long they're going to last or how long they'll go. But here's what I would suggest you do. I would suggest, number one, that you assume it's a bubble. And the other thing I would suggest you understand is that the entire economy is full of bubbles. If you get your news from CNN, if you get your news from Fox News or from anything that's mainstream media, they're going to play the game of influence and programming. I highly want you to really look at the world and understand that everything really is a bubble, because Greenspan did not allow the financial markets to correct themselves and the free market capitalism to really reposition itself, allow bankruptcies with the banks and the brokerage firms. They stepped in with their magical wands from the Federal Reserve and they created more of a problem. So they've created more money out of thin air and caused more problems on the planet than we've ever seen. And governments around the world implemented this process of quantitative easing. And what happened now is we have multiple bubbles. I believe the stock market is in a bubble. I believe the real estate is in a bubble in a lot of places around the world. I believe that the bond market is a huge bubble. In fact, for sure, the college bubble is the biggest on the planet, $1.4 trillion. We have our children graduating today with degrees. They're deeply into debt and there's no jobs because there's artificial intelligence, outsourcing, automation. And the fact is, we have a lot of people in debt. We have a huge debt crisis on the planet. Everything's a bubble. So when people are moving their fiat, which is fake, their fiat currencies into Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, they are moving the biggest bubble, which is the US dollar, which is a nightmare and a mess, into something that stores more value. So I'm just going to assume everything's a bubble. And what that means is you just got to manage risk. So when we look at it, let's look at Bitcoin. It's already coming back. So we had it down. I just put a little note out on Facebook that Bitcoin was down 13%. It's already come back up. So look, there's buyers stepping right back in as this thing continues to go higher. So when you have a down position on Bitcoin, it doesn't last long. So what causes the bubble? Well, everybody's looking at the price acceleration. And obviously, this Bitcoin has shot up from 2010, 2000, when it was worth nothing. I mean, Bitcoins were really not much value back in those days. And then it shot up and it was trading at, $60, then $1,000, then it crashed. Anyway, this year in 2017, it's gone parabolic. It's gone from $1,000 to hit $19,000 today per coin. And you can look at the charts, and as a chartist who looks at the actual technicals, this thing is on fire and the volume is accelerating. Okay, we have accelerating volume. We have great MACD. It's following its trend lines. They're creating new hyperbolic trend lines. All this is great. Here's the key though. If you buy this thing, it could anytime collapse on itself. So again, if you think of this as a bubble, how would you play this where you could profit but get out if it turns against you? And that's what you got to look at. So I always go into any position now after being burned in the dot-com crash, after being burned in the real estate crash, thinking what is the worst case scenario? Not thinking how much money I can make. I did that in the past and I made money, then I lost it. So what I learned is you need to go in and look at this and say, what is the worst case scenario? If I buy, how much can I lose? And be ready to lose that. Now, I'm not saying you're going to lose it, but knowing that you're okay, you're not putting too much risk in the markets, then you can do it right. If you think you're going to catch the right wave and it goes against you and wipes you out, listen, I've seen it wipe people out. You don't want to be that person. So just consider this as a bubble. Now, I think it will run probably for years until we get a normality around the cryptocurrencies. It's a new asset class. Nobody understands it. They don't know how to trade it. They're not really sure what it's doing. And think about this. Let's look at a bubble. Now, typically a bubble is more and more people getting into an asset class. So let me take you over to this chart here, which is really interesting. Where'd it go? Where's my chart? All right, I'm going to have to bring it up here real quick. It's the bubble chart here. So this is it. And this shows the stages of a bubble. What I want you to see is in the beginning stage, it's kind of deception. We go through a stealth phase where it starts to grow, it starts to move. Some of the early geeks are in it. In this case, computer geeks, maybe some very intelligent people that understood the blockchain and understood crypto, and they understood the decentralization of power out of the hands of the banks and the governments. And this was not a big thing. And then it starts to take off, and it gets in the awareness phase. And again, an awareness phase, it's still, I don't even think there. As I travel the world and I ask people if they have heard of cryptocurrency, still very few people have. Who's involved in it? Very, very few people. So it's still in that phase of people don't know what it is, they're hearing about it. But it says institutional investors start to get in. So the smart money gets in early, and then institutions start to come in. We are not even there yet. We have some hedge funds in. We have some billionaires in. We have some very intelligent investors in. But most people are still very negative. The banks are negative. Governments are negative overall. And that means that we're still in the beginning phase of the bubble. But once the news hits, and you're getting the media attention right now, then what happens is more and more people want to get in because of fear of missing out. So they will start to buy in. Then you'll get the enthusiasm, we'll get a run, and it will continue. Then the greed kicks in because you hear about your neighbor got rich and they're on Time Magazine because they got rich investing $30 into Bitcoin. And this is what causes this major greed and this delusion. And then everybody says, this is the way the world is now. This is a new paradigm. Everything goes up forever. And right then, the last people getting in are the ones where there's nobody left to buy because everybody is in. Then it collapses, right? It collapses and then it bounces and everybody says, oh, it's not done. It was just a dip. And then more people get in, or if they got out, they get back in, and then it really collapses and wipes people out. Now, when we look at this chart, I will tell you, from my experience, I believe we're still over here, simply because the masses are not in. They don't even know what it is. It's too complicated for them to get in. And because the media is talking about it much sooner because of social media, because we're so connected today, media hits faster. I think media might hit earlier over here. However, if this is going to continue, it's gonna have more and more people entering the market. Bitcoin has a limited supply of 21 million. Therefore, it's a true limited supply. With more demand and a limited supply, we're going to go much higher. So this thing could essentially run for another 2, 3, 5 years. I don't know. But when you enter a trade, you want to think, what's the worst that can happen? And this is it. So if you think, how can I enter the trade and manage my risk? So if it does go against me, I'm out. Or at least I'm profiting on the way up. As I make money on the way up, taking pieces out so I never have too much risk in the market, and it's all house money. Okay, that's what I want you to think. If you think that way, it will save your assets, if you know what I'm talking about. So that's what we're looking at. Now I want to show you this too. This is Google Trends. Now, interesting today, I typed in Google Trends, and I wanted to see, with Bitcoin hitting records like every couple hours, I wanted to see how many people are actually Googling it. And if you look at it, the stories that are trending are about sports. They're about Los Angeles Lakers and NFL and Walter Payton and Nintendo, Fergie, Phoenix Suns. This is the mass mindset. This is what they're looking at. The movie Psych, James Rode, weather in Mississippi. So there's not even a lot coming up here about cryptos or cryptocurrencies. Now, they are there. If you type in, for example, the topic, I can type in Bitcoin, and you'll see that there are people searching for it. In fact, it's taken a big run up here since July, and it's spiked down recently here. It's been as high. But this shows you where the searches are coming from around the world. Listen, the masses don't even get it yet. So you think this is a bubble, wait till they start to understand what cryptocurrency does in regard to decentralization of power. In regard to understanding that we can get our power back from the greedy bankers, from the banksters, the cabal, the politicians lining their pockets, and start to take back control of our own financial wealth, our own value. And then this will probably become a much bigger bubble. When we look at the number of accounts opened with Coinbase, which was one of the largest exchanges that people buy Bitcoin on, we have about 12.5 million, a little bit less than 12.5 million accounts. Think about that. On the planet, there's 7.5 billion people. We have 12.5 million accounts. And that doesn't mean they're all being utilized. That's just how many accounts they have over their history. So we're very, very small. If we go over here to blockchain, this shows how many people basically are involved in Bitcoin. It shows about 22 million people. Still very, very small. Okay. So we're looking at a very, very small number of people. The reason the price is going up, because there's a limited supply. This is the way it really works. When there's a very small supply and there's a huge demand, price goes up. If there's a very big demand and a small supply, price goes down. Well, we have a very small supply and a very large demand, and yet we haven't even started the floodgates yet. The big money's coming, the herds are coming. That's why they're saying this thing could go to 100,000 or beyond. I'm not going to project where it's going. On the track it's on now, it could easily hit 40,000 before we even hit, a couple months from now. It could be there by Christmas. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but at the end of the day, you don't know where this can go. So if you're putting money in, it's much more risky today than it was in 2013 when it was $60 a coin. But I will tell you, odds are this is going to go higher. I do believe also as people make profits, they're going to start to pull out of the Bitcoin and put them into other cryptocurrencies. There are over 1,000 cryptocurrencies, some of which are not great. For example, I invested in this one. It's called Einsteinium. There's another one, okay? And so there's a lot of them here. There's all kinds of cryptocurrencies. IOTA I've talked about Ethereum. Okay, Ethereum right now is down $11. Ethereum has this double top. Okay, so it's showing weakness. MACD's on the way down. So right now, Ethereum is showing a lot of weakness. If it breaks below this level, it probably will come down to the 50-period moving average. The point is, they're going to have cycles and times. Bitcoin is stealing all the thunder right now. So I'm just going to say I think Bitcoin's going to probably go much higher over time, and it might do it right away. But if you're going to trade Bitcoin or buy and hold Bitcoin, just make sure it's money you can afford to lose. Because this trend line is very strong, and now it's even pushing higher and starting to create more of a straight up trend line. Eventually, this is going to end, and it could come down very, very fast. So if you're entering the markets and making money, make sure you're pruning it like a plant. Pull pieces of money off along the way, and then leave some for the long term, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, as cryptocurrency disrupts the entire planet, from technology to money to banks to everything we do. Okay. So that's my take on it. Listen, if you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, put them below. I'd love to engage with you. Go over to my website, hijackedmind.com. I will be giving more and more information for free. My entire trading life I'm going to put on there, but right now cryptocurrencies have my focus. Anyway, so I hope you like the videos, and I will be doing more. I'm on the road right now, so I'm just going to do these shorter ones and give you some insights. Otherwise, have a fantastic day, and I appreciate you stopping by the video site here. And I'm trying to find my little OBS. Bear with me here. I got to get off the site. All right. So anyway, thanks. I appreciate your time. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.